Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reinvention Conversations from the Front Porch. I'm your host, Hollis Thomases, and tonight's guest is Richard Duval. He is now a professional photographer of wine landscapes and scenic landscapes, and I want you to say hi, Richard, so everybody can see you. Say a couple words.
Good evening from Seattle.
And Richard, behind him, he is showing a beautiful, and I know that this is a processed landscape photo of what, Italy? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that photo of yours?
My shoulder is a composite, 3 images that I put together. It is a sunrise over Castillo di Pezzano, which is in Greve. And I was there a few years ago for the Chianti Festival, which if you're a wine drinker and a wine lover, it is one of those festivals that you should absolutely go to before the end of your days here. It's 120 Chianti wineries in the town square of Greve. Everybody sharing their wine, everybody having a good time. It was absolutely a ball.
Wow, and Greve is in Italy, no?
Yes, Greve is in the midst of Tuscany. It's a little south of Florence.
Lovely. Speaking of wine, it's a wonderful segue for us to talk about this evening's wine because we're here, we're comfy, we've got our glass of wine, we've got our flip-flops on. I am, and in honor of Richard Duval, who's on the West Coast and who takes a lot of photographs of the Columbia River Valley and out east. This is North Star wine from Walla Walla, Washington. I visited this wine producer twice. I've been to Walla, Washington twice. It's not only a great place, but the wines are fantastic. North Star is known for its Merlot, but I'm drinking a Malbec this evening, so I haven't even tasted it. I've been letting it breathe. Smells lovely. Let me taste. Still a little hot. Woo!
All right.
Yeah, not so dry. It's not like South American Malbecs that are as peppery and as tannicky.
Washington Malbecs take a much different tack than a South American Malbec.
Yep. And what are you drinking, Richard?
And also to honor Walla Walla, I am drinking Pepperbridge, which is, this particular one is a blend from Seven Hills, one of the great sourcing vineyards in the state. Seven Hills supplies grapes to easily 80 wineries around our state. And this is a blend of Cab Sauv and a little bit of Cab Franc, a little Merlot, and a little Petit Verdot. And I do a lot of work with the Pepperbridge folks, who are some of my favorite people. And Jean-Francois, who is the winemaker, one of the owners, is a superb craftsman of wine.
Fantastic. I've been there too. We bought their wine as well. So the cellar is stopped but waning. So we need to go back out and visit.
Funny enough, I'm heading to Walla Walla when we're done with our chat tonight. I'm heading to Walla Walla to photograph for 4 days.
Okay, get us some bottles.
Count on it.
Okay, so I'm going to set the stage for everybody who's joining us right now. This is ReinventionWorks Conversation from the Front Porch. And just so that you know, Reinvention is a platform to empower people and businesses to take control of their next future through tools, networking, and education. So this is our education component this evening. Free webcasts every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Anybody can join in. You get to ask questions at the end live. We do record it, as you know. And what we want to do is inspire, instruct, educate, and motivate. So Richard has a very interesting story. Our story goes way back. But what I'm going to do is give him about 5 minutes to tell you what amounts to, I don't know, a 35-year career and about 15 years of reinvention. So take it away, Richard. 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to be with you all tonight, Hollis. It's a real honor, and it's always fun to work with you. Just quickly, graduate of Washington State University in journalism. I kind of went a little different route. I started teaching high school journalism. After a few years, I moved into corporate communications, doing PR and marketing for a big retailer here in the Northwest. And then from there, I segued into technology. And this was in the mid to late 80s when technology was really starting to hit its stride, particularly in the Seattle area. And high-tech companies were, golly, if you go to work for a high-tech company, you're set for life. Yeah, well, that didn't quite prove out to be true, but nevertheless, that started a long stretch for me of doing marketing communications work for a variety of technology-driven companies here in the Seattle area. And from that, I went into some other fields and did a little work on my own as a marketing writer and consultant. the camera was always prevalent with me. I've always shot, and then over the years, as I got better and developed my skills, I started doing it a little more seriously and pitching pictures to various publications, setting up a gallery exhibit here and there, doing some pitching out to some greeting card companies, very slowly on the side. And about 15 years ago, having gone through a number of technology companies, including the one that you and I met that we worked on together, I decided that I really wanted to just get out of corporate work and just stay focused on my thing and my thing with the camera. So I stayed very diligent and focused and did a lot of landscape work, really worked hard to increase my visibility and my reputation. And everything was fine until digital cameras came on vogue. And by this time I was still shooting film. And the market sort of went south on most professional photographers. Then everybody was up shooting, everybody was loading pictures to this internet thing. And you could find a picture of the wonderful summer flower bloom that happens on Mount Rainier every year that I would sell quite often. You can now find that online for $15. Well, I wasn't going to make a living at selling my work at $15 and thought, well, it's probably time I maybe move to something else. Right about that time, because I stayed also as a writer, I was hired by Chateau Saint Michel to do some sales and marketing writing for them. And it meant I had to go out to Eastern Washington, where most of the wineries and certainly all the vineyards are located, and met some of the folks I had to write about for the sales materials. Short story, as I fell in love with the business, I fell in love with the wine business. I also always took my camera, and I really liked what I was shooting, even though I wasn't hired to be a photographer at that particular gig. But I really liked what I was shooting. I felt very energetic about it and very revitalized, and thought it's time to do something with photography. And I decided I'm going to make wine my niche, and I'm going to position myself as a wine photographer / writer. Not that I can taste and do evaluations. I don't have that palette, but I can write about wine from a travel and a scenic standpoint. And that was about 6 years ago. And after a lot of schlepping about to the state where absolutely nobody knew me in the wine business, I've now kind of achieved a certain level of success and a good level of visibility. And I have successfully reinvented myself into this wine photographer. And so I work for all the wine marketing associations in our state. I also shoot for the wine media. I also shoot for the wineries. So I basically, am a wine photographer for hire and my tagline is editorial, promotional, and memorable. And I try to cover that gamut.
Fantastic. That was great. You came in a 4 minutes and something seconds. So bravo. And you know what? One of the things that I really like about your story is the stick-to-itness of what you've done and the real pursuit, though gradually, of this passion of yours.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to tell the audience about that part of it, because you really have had a long journey. And although, it was something that you always loved, you were in pursuit of this passion, it hasn't been always easy. And you just earlier said, like, when digital cameras came around, you almost threw in the towel. And
Sure.
And so how did you stick with it for 15 years of an evolution?
Well, part of it, I think, for me is even though I was making the switch to being much more focused on the camera and being much more focused as a photographer, my background is so strong with marketing. I've done product management and branding and advertising and PR, done media relations and all levels. So I have a good grasp of all the marketing tools. So for me, it was easier, I think, to take what I shoot and look for ways to market it out. I run into a lot of photographers when I'm out in the field, and there's some wonderful shooters in my state, but many of them just don't know what to do with their pictures once they've shot them. How do I get it out? How do I sell it? And I've never had that shyness about pitching my work. And when I shoot, I tend to shoot almost, now it's become the point where I'm almost subconsciously thinking, how can I sell this? How do I position this picture? This could be a good editorial picture. This might be a good winery pitch to the picture. This might be a wonderful greeting card. So I'm sort of constantly thinking about the branding and the marketing of what it is that I shoot. So that kind of helped me along in that, I was able to stay busy because I can I can pitch my work on multiple levels, and being able to write. I'm a fairly good magazine story writer. Again, I'm not a wine reviewer, but I can write about a lot of different things. And even when I wasn't doing photography, I was still working as a writer, and that always led to opportunities. I did a lot of PR work, for instance, for Holland America Line for a while, and that led to me being able to shoot for Holland America Line. Pictures that I shot when I was working for them, I sell now, and I have new assignments coming up that I'm going to do.
The cruise ship line.
So I think the thing that's really key to all of this, Hollis, is that you really have to be very versatile. You have to be very quick on a dime, in a sense, to seize an opportunity. You know, there's luck involved, but I always say that luck is really the product of opportunity and preparation. When an opportunity arises, if you're prepared, if you're confident in your work, and if you've got a good sense of what you're about, how you're trying to position yourself, you know, as a business person and as an entrepreneur, then these opportunities will present themselves, and you can take advantage of them. So it was, I mean, I used to joke when I first started in the wine, when literally no one knew me, that if 4 people were opening a bottle of wine in an elevator, I'd go shoot it.
Right.
You know, I would shoot everything. I went to every wine tasting release party. I went to every free event. I walked up to people, to winery, said, "Here's my card. I'm a photographer. I do very good work. I would love to work with you. I'm starting into the wine business. You know, can I spend some time? Can I come out to your?"
So do you feel that what I'm hearing is you had a set of skills that you brought into this, passion, which was your ability to market and sort of your lack of fear of selling yourself.
Yeah.
So, and that applies to whether someone's thinking of reinventing into an entrepreneur or reinventing to another career. You always have to be selling, even if you're selling yourself. But what if you don't come ready-made with those skills? What would you advise somebody who's thinking about reinventing who doesn't have a background in sales or background in marketing?
Well, I think the thing then you need to do is study your competition in whatever field, and how are they getting business? You know, what are they doing to drive revenue, and start to emulate those practices. If the field that you're segueing to requires you to go to trade shows, then go to trade shows and start paying attention to how are these people who are successful, what are they doing, and how are they successful? I mean, as I said, I didn't know much about the wine business, so I certainly went to a lot of wine events, if for no other reason, to educate myself, because
Right.
how can I talk and pitch about that market if I don't understand that market? I may know the marketing jargon, but I didn't know the wine business. So there was a lot of study. And if you're going to make a segue, study that market. You know, it's not enough that you have a great thing. You have to really understand the overall arena that you're going to position that thing in. And if you don't do the homework, you're going to end up with, more likely, you'll have a very good idea that doesn't make it put much past your desk.
Let's talk about risk tolerance. This journey of yours, you kind of don't see it as very risky, or you don't portray it that way. You just kind of portray it as, well, I had those skills. So in a way, you have a lot of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 you are when it comes to risk tolerant?
I'm never not mindful of it. That everything I do, because I work for myself, I was just joking with my son the other day that I don't get vacation pay. I don't get sick pay. So when I'm not working, I'm literally not making revenue. So I work a lot. I always joke, I work 8 days a week. And it's part and parcel in that I spend a half of my time taking pictures, a half of my time editing pictures, and a half of my time marketing those pictures. So there's a lot of overtime involved. And I have confidence in what I'm doing because I've learned the market, but I never take it for granted. I never think that just because I've achieved a certain level of success that, it's just going to now just flow all the time. So yeah, in that sense, Hollis, I'm never.
Ignore that.
In that sense, I'm never not unmindful of the risk involved. You know that you're not going to get every gig, you're not going to sell every picture, you're not going to get picked up by every editor that you pitch to, and so I just kind of have that attitude. Okay, move on. And learn. If I didn't get something, I generally try to come back and say, was there something about my work that didn't fit what you were working for? I want that input. I need that input in order for me to continue to hone my pictures and hone my work to success. So it's not so much that I'm risk adverse. I'm very aware of it. I just try to keep it in perspective.
And so, look, during this 15-year journey or what have you, what was your emotional spectrum?
I'm endlessly and relentlessly optimistic.
Well, I can attest to that, damn you.
Yeah, and so, so to that sense, emotionally, I stayed pretty positive. If for no other reason, for me, it was I really, really love what I do, and I really love the notion of not working for anybody anymore. I had done it well, and I had done it for a long time, and I don't have any delusions about that. All of a sudden I'm going to start making $500,000 a year selling pictures. Doesn't mean I won't. It just doesn't mean, it means that I know I'm not doing it today. So I have to keep working at it. So emotionally, yeah, you get discouraged on occasion. You get a fair number of rejections, and anybody in the creative field has to deal with that. A book writer, sending off his or her manuscript and gets a lot of rejections. It's wow, I'm just going to burn this thing. But I just still kind of bottom-ended. I knew if I stayed with it and just worked it, I would do all right. I always said that there are probably better photographers than me, but nobody outworks me in this field. And I will go to a lot of wine things. And one of the things I tried to do, Hollis, and I think I've done well with this, is position myself as not just a photographer, but I'm in the wine business. And so I go to a lot of wine events, even if I'm not shooting it, because I truly am in this industry. Right. The more I know about it, the more people I meet, the better my opportunities are, and the better my creative work will be. Other photographers might, come in and out of saying, oh, I'm going to pitch on a particular project, and that's great because they may have other interests. My abiding interest is wine, and I do a little bit of travel photography for Holland American on occasion, and a little bit of corporate shooting for Microsoft on occasion, but 95% of my work is focused on wine. Mm-hmm. So that also helps me keeps me from the emotional roller coaster that, can very easily happen when you're spending a lot of your time in a dark room by yourself.
Sure. Did you have any real failures, and what were they?
Yeah. I bid on a pretty significant contract for one of the wine marketing organizations. It was a year-long project, and I felt really, really confident. I knew a lot of the folks that were going to be involved in the project. I know the state. I know all of the state's AVAs, which are the growing areas for wine. And I put together what I thought was a very good proposal. I brought in a partner because part of this project involved video, and I'm not a videographer, so I brought in someone who was. And I made a strong pitch, and I came in second. And no disparaging the person who won, because she's a fabulous photographer. But yeah, that one probably of anything in the last few years, that one hit the most because I wasn't unknown at that point. And so I thought that, all of the missionary work that I'd been doing over the last few years was going to pay off in sort of a culmination of that kind of project where you know who this guy is. We see him all the time. His work is appearing in a lot of magazines and a lot of sites and a lot of wineries using him. Yeah, this is the guy for the project. So to come in second, yeah, I'm competitive enough where, it's like, damn. But I made a point of going back to them a couple weeks after the fact, says, I want to talk about what you didn't see. I didn't go in getting all pissy about it. I mean, I really thought I should have gotten it, but I also wanted to know why I didn't.
Yeah, that's smart. In terms of,
House, you get, I have such a broad database of publishers, whether they're greeting cards or calendars or magazines. And so I'm constantly pitching. I look to see what are they looking for. Well, we're looking for images like this, and you send off, you work for hours and you send off a submission of 500 images, and you get a note back, sorry, none of the ones that you submitted we can use. It's hard not to look at that and go, whoa, I sent some very strong images. What were the things that were not there that you were looking for? Sometimes you get very specific input. Sometimes, well, it's just not what our judges were looking for. Well, not much you can do with that. So And this is where I think for me, there are times when I kind of sit back from my desk and go, well, that was a kick in the pants,
Yeah.
But then I look again, and for every one that I don't get, here's my database or my target list of 200 or 300 other things. So I just like, okay, well, go for this one then. If I can learn something, I can, but then I move it on.
Yeah, I feel like there's a saying in sales, ABC, always be closing, and I feel like you're saying ABL, always be learning.
Yeah, and I would say always be learning / always be pitching. You have to have enough confidence in what you're doing, particularly if you're a one-person show like I am, to represent it all the time, no matter how many times you heard the word no. You just cannot let it stop you. If you do, then go back to a corporate job. I mean, this is not, what is it Katharine Hepburn once said, that getting old is not for sissies. Well, being an entrepreneur type, being a one-person operation, this is not for sissies either. If you have thin skin, if you get quickly demolished when someone says no about your creative work, this is not the thing to do.
Right.
You really have to, and you just have to understand sometimes people are going to turn it down for no particular reason.
Right.
And you just move.
Now you have, over the years, because your reinvention process has taken so long, you've used lots of different tools, lots of different assistants. But, can you kind of talk about anything that stands out that you think really helped you in the process, that whether it was a long time ago or more recently, and it doesn't have to be technology, it could be, but what made an impact on you besides all of the stuff that you did yourself?
I spent about 6 years as the director of marketing communications for a technology firm called Andrew Network Products. It was all put together from acquisition from 5 companies, and then they put us all under one umbrella and said, okay, now you are now a company. And I think that probably more than any single other thing is where I got my marketing education and my marketing experience. There was a lot of really hands-on, where I really first started to understand positioning and branding, and understand the difference between benefits and features, particularly in technology, because technology can be so feature rich but benefit poor in terms of, you work with engineers who tend to think of things as, here I'm giving you this thing, and then I'm giving you this thing, and you're screaming back, yeah, but why do I want it? And they look at you like you're an idiot, but because they know why you want it. But I need to articulate it to the customer. And so all of that really is where I started to really understand customer-driven communications, how to create a demand, how to position your work, or in this case, your products, in an arena where the customer is saying, this is the solution I've been looking for. As opposed to, here's the thing, you want to buy it?
Right. Did you use any resources along the way?
I took an integrated marketing communications, entered my vocabulary early on in this stage, and it was like, wow, I get this. I truly understand now why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I took an integrated marketing communications course from Northwest University, and that was a very intense 5-day thing. I went back for my master's in communications here in Seattle, which also helped me crystallize some of these things. It's where you go from building the thing to thinking about building the thing, and why do you want to build the thing, and once you build the thing, what do you want to do with it, how are you going to sell it, and it's being able to move from the tactical to the strategic. And that 6-year stretch for me is really where I learned and developed a strategic oriented approach, and I still use it to this day. I get notices from various publishers. We're looking for new pictures, and I'll write back and say, have you considered a wine-oriented calendar, a wine-specific calendar? And I'll give them the demographics. Look at the increase in wine popularity. I've done this with a Washington-based publisher, and I've really gone in and pitched. I didn't come in and pitch myself. I pitched the strength of the Washington wine market and the demographics I have at my fingertips that shows just how popular Washington wines are in our own state and how popular they're getting out of state. That helped me. Then I came back and said, and here's the images that I capture. Right. Even my own pitch line is. My job is to capture the magic that the winemakers make. It's not about my pictures. It's about Washington wine. I'm the one who's going to put it in front of you, and I hope in a very creative and very fun way. But even there, you see, Hollis, it's the positioning aspect of it. It isn't, hey, can I show you some of my pictures? It's, can I show you how I'm helping move Washington wine with my work? And then
Right.
that conversation then takes a different tack, because now you're talking business to business and professional to professional. One of the real hurdles for people who want to move into a creative field as a profession is that they have to learn quickly how not to look like a hobbyist, and it can't be, well, I've always really taken nice pictures, and that's great, but that's not what a potential publisher is looking for. They're trying to sell something. They want either they're selling calendars or a book or a greeting card line. You've got to be able to say, oh, I studied your card line. I think you have a gap here where I can really provide images that would be a very strong addition to your card line or to your book or to your calendar. And that's what I mean earlier about the whole marketing thing about positioning. I'm just good at that. And I work really, really hard to stay good at that.
Right. So how about, did you get any support along the way? And from
Oh,
who?
it's all me.
Who was giving you the pats on the back and the, hugs when you needed them? Where did what did you get? And
Well, I have a great family. My wife, Leslie, is probably my biggest fan of my work. And she's also a good objective view of my work. I will often run things by her and say, here's what I'm thinking of submitting to this. What do you think? And she'll, this one doesn't work as well. And she gives me a good perspective. But she knew early on I really wanted to do this. And that and her only charge to me was, if you can continue to bring in revenue so that, we can continue to live like we want to live, then go. And she puts up with, in my 8-day week, she puts up with me being on the road a lot, particularly during wine season. I just came back and I'm going again, and then next week I go again. That kind of support, and also faith and confidence in your work. I mean, she's, her viewpoints and her opinions are huge with me, and I really could not have done it without her. My children kind of sometimes scratch their head and go, "You're really making a living at this, huh?" But great. My son has a very keen sense of color and a very keen sense of position, and I rely on his judgment. My daughter's a great salesperson. I pick her brains too. So that, and then I have a good, strong community of fellow photographers, people I've shot with over the years. I can always send stuff to them and say, what do you think of this? I just opened a studio with 2 other photographers in Woodinville, which is the heart of Washington wine country on this side of the mountains. Where I'm starting to do more studio work and bottle shots. Now, I'm not studio trained, so this again, here's a little bit of risk aversion. This is a big step for me to go that route. I have some training, but not to the extent that my 2 partners have. So now I'm surrounded with their expertise, and I can call on Jill and Carol and say, here's a bottle shot I've just got. Here's what I want to do. Let's work on this together. And I love collaborating. I love working with people who are smarter than me. And it's not hard to find them.
So let's, we've got about a minute left. And if you could say, think back to when you were considering this as a life career change, what advice would you give to people who are in those shoes now, to get them on their path? What specific things would you tell them to do?
Think it through. Really strongly evaluate the good and the bad. What's the good parts that can happen? What's the risk involved? And then make a decision. And if you make a decision, then go at it relentlessly. I mean, it has to be almost a mantra to you. I literally wake up every morning, almost always, in a very good mood, because the day is fresh with opportunity. I just have to go out and find it. So you have to feel like you are really, really called to what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, and that there's a market out there for what you want to do. It's not enough just to be passionate about it. You have to be passionate about something that also has a practical or monetary value if you're going to do this for a living. If you're just doing it as a hobby, that's different. So it's sort of like if you want to be a fundraiser for a medical cause, and you're doing it because that medical cause perhaps affected your family. That might be what you write in your letter. Hey, I want to be part of this because I have a personal connection, and I want to be a fundraiser for you. The person you're appealing to the job will write back and say, that's great, but I need someone with fundraising experience. It's not just your passion. Can you help me raise $40 million for a new wing? So you've got to marry the practical with and the ideal together.
Okay. I'm gonna wrap it up now because I want to make sure we leave time for Q&A. So now everybody, it's time for the Q&A. And if you move your mouse towards the bottom of your window where you're viewing us, you'll see a little Q&A icon where you can click on it and type in your question. And so if you have any questions for Richard, we would love for you to submit them now. And we do have one, so I'll get you started on that, Richard. And the question is, how do you go about promoting yourself to your customers? I've been told that it's the top left side. It's the top left side to type in your question. Sorry, everybody. It's bottom on mine. Look for the Q&A icon on the top left side.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I do the gamut of things. Social media, I try to maintain a pretty active presence on Facebook. I think that's good. I send out a quarterly postcard to a select mailing list of wineries saying, here's what here's a picture, here's the latest I've been doing as a bottle shot or a tasting room shot. I would love to work for you. May I call you? May I follow up? I attend an awful lot of wine events. I think for me in particular, nothing works quite as well as that personal connection. And the fact that I have had publishing success, I can go into a winery and say, hello, I'm Richard Duval. I'm a photographer. I specialize in the wine industry. You might have seen my work in Washington Taste Room magazine. 7 times out of 10, I go, yeah, I have. I really like your work. Okay, the conversation begins. And if they say, yeah, but I guess I haven't seen your stuff, that's okay. I happen to have an issue with me. And I open it up and say, here's my latest work for them, because I both write and shoot for them. And can we talk about how I might be able to work with you?
I have a question. I have a question for you, because I'm the recipient of this. One of the things that I really appreciate that you do, and it's so subtle, is that you are your own best publicist, and you're always sending me, your latest. This is what I've been featured in, but you send it in a way that's more like, well, you are my friend, but it's news about you, but it's not intrusive or overbearing. And I'm assuming that I'm not the only wonderful recipient of all of this news. So how did you have to jump a hurdle to be comfortable, like sort of bragging to your friends and your family about what you're doing? And do you ever think of it that way?
Yeah, surprisingly, because I'm pretty gregarious and pretty jovial, but I don't particularly. I try not to talk about myself too much, and with friends and family. I mean, I'm lucky that I have a good circle of folks who are kind of on this journey with me. A lot of folks have said, I'm so impressed that you were able to reinvent yourself and that you've carved out this niche. So they want to see examples of my success. But I do always try to couch it in things like, hey, thought you would get a kick out of this. Isn't this funny? Instead of, wow, look at this neat, great thing I just did. Yeah, again, you're in a creative field. You better have some ego or you're never going to get your stuff out there. But you better have your ego in balance. I think this is where my family is such a big help. They definitely don't let me get away with too much, even if I tried. So folks like you, because you and I've had a lot of frank conversations on some of the stuff we've worked with where I was definitely off on the wrong track, and you didn't hurt my feelings by saying, Rick, you missed the ball on that one. And that's good. You need to be with people who will support you, but also will tell you the truth.
I think that's a good piece of advice. Does anybody else have any other questions? If not, we're going to be wrapping this up. But before we do, of course, I want to thank the wonderful Richard Duval for his time and the generosity of his story and his honesty. I'm also going to be letting everybody see what's coming up for us. So I'm going to encourage you to contact Richard, and if you're interested in any of his images, his website is duvalimages.com, or for his wine photography, vinelines.com. That's a great URL. You can't forget it. And his pictures are just stunning. I mean, we could probably talk. If he would let us talk for 30 minutes about how he does his treatment of his photography. It's pretty cool. For future webcasts, they're every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. on Eastern Time, so you can come in from anywhere in the world. You can register at reinventionworks.com/webcasts. We hope to see you again. Our next guest next week, Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. is Steve DiFilippo. Steve's got an amazing reinvention story too. Whereas most people might want to pursue what, like Richard did, a hobby that turned into it was a passion but turned into a profession. Steve kind of started there as a professional studio musician and then was enamored by technology in the studio, taught himself technology, eventually became a technology specialist for some nonprofits, then corporate America, and he was doing marketing, and he eventually ended up being in charge of technology for higher education and entities like colleges and universities. So his story is really cool too. And in order to see it, you need to register. So please do at reinventionworks.com/webcasts. And if you are the active type on social media, our hashtag is #ReinventionWorks. So that's the way to tell everybody about it. And I really appreciate you all coming in tonight and being with us. So that's all for now. We'll see you next week. Everybody have a great time and drink your wine. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.